Actually, Russian private education sucks. I mean, in terms of independent research, independent professional programs.
Private institutions have to sort of make up the difference.
What could be your advice to Russian chairmen, Russian presidents of private universities? 99% of our e-learning systems consist of MOOC formats.
You'll have 10,000 students in a class, and maybe only 100 or 200 actually complete the course.
My friends, today we have special guests. Ray is a researcher of the higher education in the New York University. So thank you very much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Could you also tell something about yourself, your career, and what you're doing to our subscribers?
Well, as you mentioned, Dennis, I'm a higher education researcher. I just completed my PhD at New York University. I will be a postdoctoral researcher in Washington, D.C., and my research really looks at a few different areas of higher education, global mobility, civic engagement, as well as equity in higher education.
Okay. It's quite interesting for me. Why is private higher education so well developed in the U.S.? So what are the main strengths of private universities in the U.S.? So why do they have their own strong agenda in terms of academic research and also some bachelor master programs?
Yeah, to understand the strength of private higher education in the United States, you really have to look at the history. The development of higher education in the United States started with private institutions like Harvard, Yale, Princeton. They all were founded before even the United States was an independent country. And these institutions started with a strong tradition of autonomy, that they're able to set their own mission, their agenda, and they're able to kind of do what they want in order to establish their programs without much state intervention. Over the course of U.S. history, we started to add, private or public institutions as well. But the private world was there. They had strong autonomy, which I think is a very important part of their development. And as we've gotten into the 21st century, they've also had a lot of time to develop high-quality programs, establish reputations, and that has led to being able to fundraise, get a lot of money in their endowment, so they're able to support themselves.
Okay. So if we make a comparison analysis of the U.S. private universities with the Russian private universities, we can conclude that actually Russian private education sucks. I mean, in terms of independent research, independent professional programs. So what do you think is the main, what are the main issues why Russian private education can't develop by its own?
I think it kind of comes back to that autonomy and the funding. The Russian government funds its public institutions very well, and they receive the bulk of all funding. So private institutions have to sort of make up the difference, and they have to set their agenda and be able to do it in a way where they're competing against much better funded and much longer tradition of institutions. The private institutions in Russia have only existed for a few decades. So they're sort of playing catch up, and I think that's the biggest struggle for them at this point.
Okay, and what could be your advice to Russian chairmen, Russian presidents of private universities in terms of providing a strong educational mission for their institutions?
I mean, it's really articulating what that mission is and to find their institution's place within the structure of Russian higher education. So, are they going to be an institution that really focuses on the health sciences? I think that they should really focus there, or business, or, helping society out. I think that would be the biggest piece of advice that I have, and to try to attract the best students and best faculty, of course. But I think that starts with having a well-articulated plan.
Okay. Well, if we move from this high patterns to lower practical patterns, so what could be your real advice to, for example, me when I became the chairman of a private university, and so I've launched actually the new bachelor program in terms of management and tourism. And what do you think is the way to success in the Russian reality? So what is your understanding? What should I do? What is the guideline?
Yeah, I think, again, looking at the U.S. context can give us a little bit of an idea, not necessarily an exact prescription, but institutions, kind of like the privates here in Russia, they're a little bit more on the entrepreneurial side. They really try to focus on vocationally based programs, ones that help their students get jobs, because I think that's something in the U.S. and Russia is very important to young people, is to have the skills. So I think if I were to advise you, in any type of program, whether it's management or tourism, is to have a program that's theoretically grounded, but also has very tangible learning outcomes that individuals, when they come out of your program, that they can apply them directly into the labor market.
Wow, that's interesting. Let's move to the next topic. The next topic is concerning the e-learning. Well, you know that MOOCs, massive online open courses, still play important role. Actually, if we analyze the e-learning market in Russia, we can conclude that 99% of our e-learning systems consist of MOOC format, and it's actually, I think, unique, and from the other side, it's really bad, because it's about info business. It's not about teaching you some practical skills. So, what do you think about the future of the MOOC courses actually in Russia and especially in the US?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the MOOC craze has sort of died down a little bit in terms of the hype, and now we've had the chance to sit back and look and really evaluate, the place of MOOCs, what they're good at, what they're not that good at, and how we can potentially improve them. One of the major challenges MOOCs have, at least in the U.S., and I think this applies globally, is completion rates. You'll have 10,000 students in a class, and maybe only 100 or 200 actually complete the course, because with them being free, there's not the motivation to actually finish. So having well-structured courses that meet the needs of students, that is not just throwing facts their way, but also has an element of student support to them to make sure that the students are actually getting what they need out of the classes, I think is very important. One thing that we've learned with online learning is that the students that they're aimed for generally, and I'm speaking more of the U.S., are those that generally are not, their first option isn't to go to traditional higher education. They're a little bit older, they might have families, they might be working, so they can't really sit down in the classroom like a traditional student would. But due to a lot of these other external factors, they may not be the best candidates for an online learning platform where you need a lot of intrinsic motivation in order to complete the course. So I think any sort of MOOC or any e-learning platform that tries to expand the reach of education has to be able to take that into account and provide that student support along with it, whether it's a faculty member being able to answer questions using TAs or whatnot. I think that's something that has to be considered in the design of the course.
Okay, so there is such an idea, especially promoted by the Australian higher education scientists, especially Peter Goodyear. So this scientist states that network learning format is the future #1 educational format that's going to be very popular and very beneficial for the whole society. What is the key idea of network learning? So it's about practical orientation, of course. So even if it's online format, you won't spend the vast majority of your time on just watching the videos of professionals. It's about taking part in in real projects, and this is one of the benefits because it's the main priority of network learning. So what do you think? Will network learning formats be more popular and be more influential than the traditional format of higher education in the long-term perspective in the world and especially in the Russia?
I think it'll balance out. I don't think one will completely eliminate the other, because there's certain fields such as medical education to create physicians that you really can't do in an e-format. That really has to be a traditional higher ed setting. Things like philosophy, for another example, It's much more difficult to do in an e-learning format. But because of the demand for practical skills and the idea that people need to get jobs after they finish, the e-learning platforms are going to have a very prominent role. And I think they'll go very side by side, and you might see even some blending between the two models as institutions try to incorporate as much e-learning as possible, because it's very popular. It reaches the masses, and in terms of practical education, may have some advantages that the traditional higher education sector is just unable to meet or match.
Okay, well, and let's move to the final topic. Well, it's concerning it's your favorite topic. I mean, it's about the role of education in institutionalizing civic values. So, and as far as I know, you are providing research about the role of higher education in providing an impact on the civic values in the society. So what do you think is the role of, how could you evaluate the role of higher education and providing the civic roles in Russia? So how do you understand it?
Yeah, it's definitely a sector that requires a little bit more development than I think some areas of the world. Universities have often done a great job of teaching and research, but it's this third mission or service or societal impact that universities are still trying to grapple with. They're trying to figure out where it fits within the overall structure, because sometimes it could overlap a little bit with the teaching and the research missions. From my early observations in Russia, is that a place like HSC University is starting to start volunteer programs and really trying to get a civic consciousness developed in their students. Again, it's at the very early stages. I mean, the schools in the U.S. have been doing this for decades. HSC started to do that, but there's still much more work and development needed there to develop that infrastructure to achieve those learning outcomes in there.
Thank you for participating in our project at Edtech Hackers, and so I hope it was quite interesting for you. So like, subscribe to my channel, and see you next time.
Thanks for having me.